Hello, my name is Cynthia Campbell, and I'm pleased to have been the author of the foundation essay for this unit of practice on forgive. Up until about a year and a half ago, I served as pastor of the Highland Presbyterian Church in Louisville, Kentucky. I've also spent a good deal of time in my past as a theological educator on the faculty at Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and then as a professor and president at McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago. All along the way, it's been my privilege to work with adults primarily in congregations across the country, and I'm so pleased to be part of this curriculum that helps us understand how our faith isn't just ideas, but is about the things that we embody and live in our everyday lives. In the last segment of this unit, we turn to a different way of thinking about forgiveness. And that is building a bridge to the future. One might call it moving on, but that phrase is, I think, less positive than this image of building a bridge to a new reality. Now, once again, this is not an easy concept for some of you who are struggling with a wrong from the past or a wrong that you're experiencing and what it means in that context to forgive. Remember, you're not being asked to deny your experience of being wronged or violated. What you are being invited to do is to see forgiveness as a building block of a new and different reality for you, perhaps also for the ones who have wronged you. But even if not for them, then for you. So in this session, we explore how forgiveness builds a bridge to something new. Forgiveness doesn't just look backwards at actions in the past, but it looks forward to a new future. Forgiveness is not just dealing with events with the past, it's about opening the possibility that something new can happen for yourself, but hopefully between you and others. You see, the past, the burden of wrongs done in the past, either by others to you or by ourselves to others, can be burdens that hold us back. The wrongs of the past can also, unforgiven, be weaponized. That is, they can become grudges, nursed like the dog who chews a favorite bone. Forgiveness means setting down that burden and letting go of the weapon. It means participating in God's work of redeeming the past and creating something new. Our biblical stories examine this dynamic in two very different ways, positive and open-ended. So the positive. The Joseph saga is an incredible story that occupies many chapters at the very end of the book of Genesis. And it's a long and wonderful story. It's worth going back and reading that from the beginning and getting a sense of this saga of brothers. You will remember that there are these 12 sons of Jacob, and Joseph is the young dreamer, and his brothers are jealous of him. He's probably a bit cocky and arrogant, and they plot to kill him, but then at the last minute decide that's not such a good idea, so they sell him into slavery in Egypt. And decades pass. Joseph ends up as one of the highest advisors to the Pharaoh in Egypt. He becomes thoroughly Egyptianized in dress, in language, in demeanor. He doesn't look like himself anymore. He's a powerful and smart man. Famine comes, and his brothers, refugees from famine, they come to Egypt to try to buy grain to stave off starvation. And Joseph, they come into an audience with Joseph because he's the one that will make this decision. And of course, they don't recognize him. And Joseph does not reveal himself at first. There's a story of this struggle within Joseph and about what to do. Eventually, he cannot stand it any longer, and he reveals himself, begins speaking, of course, in their language. At the end of this story, he says, what you intended for evil, God is intended for good, because out of this event, there becomes a new home for Israel in Egypt. Joseph's compassion to them, Joseph's willingness to forgive and willingness to receive them into Egypt is how his siblings, his extended family, the people of God are in fact saved from famine and have a bridge to a new future. But only because he was willing to forgive. Now, the other story is the only, I think, open-ended parable that Jesus ever spoke. At the end of the parable of the prodigal son, or the loving father, you remember the engagement between the father and the older brother, who has stayed outside, who will not come in and join the feast, who will not forgive his brother. And the parable ends with the father's entreaty and the father's promise. Everything I have is yours. You've always been with me. What we don't know is what happens next. We don't know whether or not that older brother can build a bridge to the future. We're left to imagine ourselves into that story. What would we do and how? The contemporary examples for this unit I think are truly important, because it would be easy to say that this is all either abstract or otherworldly or just nice Bible stories without any practical relevance. The two examples we give are incredibly practical. Probably one of the most amazing things that happened in the late 20th century was, in fact, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. That is probably the single most important thing that kept that country from exploding in rounds of revenge and violence once the apartheid regime was finally dismantled. Victims came in and named their experience, and perpetrators of violence and injustice were given the opportunity to hear and to acknowledge, and then for everyone to move on. A similar kind of thing is now being worked on in what is called restorative justice. The idea, whether it's used in schools or in fact in the criminal justice system, is to move beyond a simple, you do the crime, you pay the time, to a reconciliation between a perpetrator and victim, and a way to build a new future for both parties based on a shared admittance of what has gone wrong and a process of trying to amend for that. Your community may have such a practice in the schools or in a university or college near you that has a program in restorative justice. I encourage you to look that up. See what relevance that might have to situations in your own community, your own congregation perhaps, of using forgiveness as a way to build a new future of relationships, something God is always hoping we will do.